The farm's going to foreclosure auction. My brother Marcus announced, slapping a court order on my kitchen table with the satisfaction of someone who delaying years for this moment should have paid back Dad's loan when you had the chance. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed, whispering to my aunt, she'll finally learn some responsibility. Maybe losing everything will teach her what we couldn't. They'd driven 3 hours from the city to deliver this news in person. To watch me crumble, to finally prove that the daughter who'd rejected their corporate plans was destined to fail. What none of them knew, what no one outside my carefully cultivated network understood, was that the struggling farm they'd come to seize was actually the exclusive supplier to every Michelin-starred restaurant in the tri-state area, with contracts worth more than my brother's law practice would earn in a decade. The loan they were claiming I owed was $35,000. My farm's annual revenue was $2.30 million, but my family didn't know that. They'd never asked. You have 30 days to vacate, Marcus continued, his lawyer voice dripping with condescension. The county assessor will be here Friday to value the property for auction. Whatever's left after settling the debt goes into an escrow account, which, given the state of this place, I'm guessing won't be much. He gestured dismissively at the view through my kitchen window. Rows of carefully tended greenhouses, fields of heritage vegetables, the climate-controlled facilities where I grew ingredients that chefs paid premium prices to access. To Marcus, it just looked like dirt and plastic. I never agreed to any loan, I said quietly. Dad's estate records say otherwise. He lent you $35,000 for startup costs 6 years ago. Interest has been acre wing. You owe the estate $47,000 now, and since Mom is the executive, she's authorized me to collect. I looked at my mother. Mom, Dad gave me that money as a gift. He said he wanted to invest in my dream. There was no loan agreement. Your father was too soft on you, Mom replied, without meeting my eyes. He enabled your foolishness. I'm correcting that mistake by stealing my farm, by teaching you consequences. She finally looked at me, her expression a mixture of contempt and disappointment I'd known my entire life. You chose to play in the dirt instead of building a real career. You rejected every opportunity, Marcus. And I offered. Now you'll see what happens when fantasy meets reality. I could have fought them right there. I could have pulled out contracts, financial statements, client testimonials. I could have shown them exactly how wrong they were. But I didn't, because I'd learned long ago that my family didn't respond to words. They only understood proof. Undeniable. Public, impossible to dismiss proof. The assessor comes Friday. I asked. Friday morning, 9 a.m. Marcus looked smug. I'll be here to ensure the process goes smoothly. Fine. I'll see you Friday. They left convinced they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. My farm, Green Valley Organic, had been built from nothing over 6 years of relentless work. When I'd left my corporate marketing job to pursue farming, my family had reacted with horror. Marcus had called it a quarter-life crisis. My mother had suggested therapy. My father, the only one who supported me, had given me the $35,000 and told me to prove them wrong. He died 2 years later, never seeing what I'd created. But I'd carried his belief with me through every challenge. The first years had been brutal. I'd made every mistake a new farmer could make, lost entire crops to weather and pests and inexperience. But I'd also learned, adapted, found my niche. I realized early that commodity farming was a race to the bottom. Large operations would always undercut small farms on volume and price. So, I'd gone the opposite direction: ultra-premium specialty produce that couldn't be mass-produced. I grew heritage tomato varieties that most farmers had abandoned decades ago. I cultivated microgreens so delicate they had to be harvested by hand. I developed relationships with seed collectors around the world to access ingredients that simply couldn't be found anywhere else. And I built a client list that read like a who's who of American fine dining. The Green Fork in Manhattan, Seaside in Boston, Harvest Moon in Philadelphia, 12 Michelin starred restaurants in total, plus another 30 high-end establishments, specialty grocers, and private chefs who serve the ultra-wealthy. My waiting list for new clients was 18 months long. Chefs who wanted my produce had to sign contracts guaranteeing minimum orders for 2 years. Some of my rarest items, the purple carrots, the golden beets, the 12 varieties of heirloom garlic, commanded prices that would have made my commodity farming neighbors faint. But none of this was public knowledge. I deliberately maintained a low profile. No social media presence, no press coverage, no farm tours for curious foodies. My clients valued discretion. They didn't want their competitors knowing where they sourced their ingredients, and I valued privacy. To the outside world, I was just a woman with a small organic farm that probably scraped by selling vegetables at farmers markets. To the restaurant industry, I was the most sought-after produce supplier on the East Coast. My family had never asked which version was true. They'd assumed the former because it confirmed their belief that I was a failure. They were about to discover their mistake. Friday morning arrived. Crisp and clear. Perfect weather for the destruction of my family's delusions. Marcus arrived at 8:30, overdressed in a suit that looked absurd on a working farm. My mother came with him wearing an expression of anticipatory satisfaction. They brought my Aunt Patricia, too, probably as a witness to my humiliation. At 9 a.m. sharp, a county vehicle pulled up the driveway. The assessor was a middle-aged man named Thomas Brennan. He emerged from his car with a clipboard, a camera, and the methodical demeanor of someone who'd valued thousands of properties in his career. Miss Delacroix, I'm here for the court-ordered assessment. Of course. Please look at anything you need. Marcus inserted himself immediately. The property is approximately 40 acres. Original farmhouse, some outbuildings. Basic irrigation infrastructure. I've done preliminary research. Comparable agricultural land in this county is selling for about $8,000 per acre. Should be a straightforward valuation. Thomas glanced at him. And you are? Marcus Delroy, attorney for the estate. My mother is the executive. I see. Thomas made a note on his clipboard. I appreciate the input, but I'll need to conduct my own assessment. These things take time. How long are we talking? Several hours at minimum. Agricultural properties require comprehensive evaluation. Soil quality, water rights, infrastructure condition, any specialized equipment or facilities. He looked around, his eyes landing on the greenhouse complex. Those structures, for instance, they'll need individual inspection. They're just greenhouses, Marcus said dismissively. Plastic and pipes. Thomas didn't respond. He was already walking toward the fields. The assessment took 4 hours. Thomas walked every acre. He photographed the green houses, the climate-controlled storage facilities, the specialized irrigation systems I'd installed. He examined my processing areas, my seed storage, my propagation labs. Somewhere around the second hour, his demeanor started to shift. He made phone calls, multiple phone calls. His voice was too low for me to hear the details, but his body language spoke volumes. The way he straightened up, the way he started taking more photos, the way he kept returning to examine things he'd already seen. Marcus grew increasingly impatient. This is taking forever. It's just a farm. It's a complex agricultural operation. Thomas corrected. I'm seeing infrastructure investments. I need to verify specialized equipment. Controlled environment agriculture that requires expert valuation. Expert valuation for vegetables. Thomas looked at Marcus for a long moment. Sir, are you aware of what's being grown here? Organic produce? Tomatoes, lettuce, whatever. The kind of thing you sell at farmers markets. I see. Thomas made another note. Miss Delroy, may I see your client records? Of course. They're in my office. I led him to the small building where I managed the business side of the farm. Behind me, I heard Marcus and my mother following. Finally curious about what was happening, I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out the client folder. These are my current contracts. Active relationships, guaranteed orders, payment histories. Thomas opened the folder. He read the first page, then the second. Then he stopped reading and looked at me with an expression of barely concealed amazement. Miss Delroy. Is this accurate? You supply the green fork? Yes. They've been a client for 4 years. And Seaside, Harvest Moon, yes. And yes. And this list, 12 Michelin starred restaurants. 13 as of last month, Lumiere and Baltimore just earned their first star. They've been my client for 2 years. Thomas sat down the folder and pulled out his phone. I need to make a call. He stepped outside. Through the window, I could see him speaking urgently into the phone, gesturing at the greenhouses, occasionally looking back at my office with an expression of Disbelief. Marcus appeared in the doorway. What's going on? What's in that folder? My business records. Let me see. No, I'm the attorney for the estate. You're the attorney attempting to seize my property based on a fraudulent debt claim. You're not entitled to inspect my private business documents. Fraudulent. There's a loan. There was a gift from our father who specifically told me it was an investment in my dream, not a loan. You manufactured this entire claim because Mom wants to punish me for not living the life she chose for me. My mother appeared behind Marcus. That money was part of the estate. We have every right. You have no rights to anything of mine. And in about 5 minutes, you're going to realize exactly how badly you've miscalculated. Thomas returned, his face flushed. Miss Delroy. I've contacted my supervisor. We're going to need additional time to complete this assessment. The property value is significantly higher than the initial estimate. How much higher? Marcus demanded. Thomas looked at him. Then at my mother, then at me. Sir, this isn't a struggling farm. Miss Delacroix is supplying premium organic produce to every Michelin-starred restaurant in the tri-state area. Her contracts alone are worth, he consulted his notes. Her annual revenue exceeds $2 million. Her client relationships, proprietary seed stocks, and specialized infrastructure add substantial value beyond the land itself. The room went silent. I've been doing this job for 23 years, Thomas continued. I've never seen a specialty agricultural operation like this. The greenhouses are commercial grade, controlled environment systems. The seed library contains varieties that would be considered priceless to collectors. The client list reads like a guide to fine dining in America. He turned to Marcus. Who told you this was a failing farm? Because whoever provided that information was either lying or profoundly ignorant. Marcus looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. Based on my preliminary assessment, Thomas concluded this property is worth between $4 and $6 million. The exact figure will require additional expert consultation, but the range is not in question. He gathered his materials. I'll submit my report to the court. The foreclosure action will likely be dismissed. The claimed debt is a fraction of the property value and, frankly, the legitimacy of the claim itself is now in question. He walked out without another word. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then Marcus started scrambling. This doesn't change anything. The loan is still valid. We can negotiate a payment plan. There is no loan, Marcus. There was never a loan. I pulled out a file I'd prepared years ago, waiting for this exact moment. This is Dad's journal from 6 years ago. The entry from March 15th specifically says gave Sophie $35,000 today. Told her it was an investment in her dream, not a loan. Linda will be furious, but I believe in this girl. She's going to prove them all wrong. I handed the journal to Marcus. He read The entry, his face draining of color. Dad kept journals for 30 years. They're part of his estate records. You would have found this if you'd actually done due diligence instead of just trying to hurt me. I took the journal back. This will be submitted to the court. Your fraudulent debt claim will be thrown out. And depending on how the judge feels, you might be looking at sanctions for filing a frivolous action. Now wait a minute. No, you wait. I stepped closer to my brother. All the anger of 6 years finally finding its voice. You came here to take my farm. You came here to humiliate me. You came here to prove that your path was the only valid path. And mine was a failure's delusion. I gestured out the window at the green houses, the fields, the operation I'd built with my own hands. I supply 13 Michelin-starred restaurants. I have an 18-month waiting list for new clients. Chefs fly in from other states just to see what I'm growing. My farm generates more annual revenue than your law practice. Marcus said nothing. I turned to my mother. You've never believed in me. Not when I graduated top of my class. Not when I built a successful marketing career. Not when I left to follow my own path. You've spent my entire life waiting for me to fail, so you could say, I told you so. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to control me, and when control didn't work, you tried destruction. I shook my head. Dad believed in me. He gave me his blessing and his support. And you've spent the 4 years since his death trying to undo everything he stood for. My mother's face crumpled, but I wasn't moved. Leave my farm. Don't contact me again. If you try anything else, any more legal actions, any more schemes, I will respond with every resource at my disposal. And as you've just learned, those resources are considerable. Marcus gathered his papers and walked out without speaking. My Aunt Patricia followed, looking shell-shocked. My mother lingered. Sophie, I never meant. Yes, you did. You meant every word. You just didn't expect consequences. I'm your mother. You're the woman who tried to steal my livelihood to teach me a lesson. Those are very different things. I opened the door. Goodbye, Mom. She left. I closed the door and stood alone in my kitchen looking out at the farm I'd built. The greenhouses gleaming in the afternoon sun. The fields ready for their spring, planting the life I'd created from nothing but determination and my father's faith. The court dismissed the foreclosure action 6 weeks later. The judge's ruling specifically noted the lack of documentary evidence supporting the claimed debt and the contradictory evidence provided by my father's journals. Marcus received a formal warning about filing frivolous claims. My mother attempted to reach out twice. Both times I didn't respond, but I did make one change. For 6 years, I'd kept my success hidden. I'd valued privacy over recognition, discretion over visibility. I'd let my family believe I Was failing because their opinion seemed irrelevant to my actual life. Now, I saw the cost of that silence. I hired a publicist. I agreed to interviews. I let food magazines photograph my green houses and profile my operation. When the New York Times food section called about a feature on farm totable sourcing, I said yes. The article ran 3 months later. It included photos of my fields, quotes from Michelin starred chefs praising my produce, and a detailed account of how I'd built a multi-million-dollar agricultural business from scratch. The headline read, "The Hidden Queen of High-End Produce." I sent a copy to my mother, not to gloat, not for revenge, but so that the next time she told someone her daughter was a failure, they could Google me and discover the truth for themselves. Last week, I received a letter from Marcus. "Sophie, I owe you an apology. Not a legal apology. My attorney has advised against that, but a personal one. I believed what Mom told me. I never questioned it. I never visited the farm, never asked about your business, never gave you the benefit of the doubt that I would have extended to any stranger. That's on me. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I see what you've built, and I'm genuinely impressed. Dad was right about you. I wish I'd realized it sooner. Your brother, whether you want me or not." Marcus, I read the letter twice. Then I wrote back, "Marcus, you tried to take my farm. You sided with Mom without question. You came to my property to watch me fail. But you also just admitted you were wrong, something Mom still hasn't done. I'm not ready to forgive you, but I'm open to watching you earn it. If you want to rebuild a relationship, you're going to have to put in the work. No shortcuts, no assumptions. Start by visiting the farm. Actually seeing what I've built, meeting the people who work here, understanding why this matters to me, then we'll talk. Your sister, whether you deserve me or not, Sophie, they called my farm failing. They tried to seize it for $47,000. The county assessor found a $6 million agricultural operation supplying the finest restaurants in America. My father believed in me when no one else did. Now the whole world knows he was right.